Well, today, a bill named after Georgia student Laken Riley, who was tragically killed by an undocumented immigrant, is expected to be signed into law today. Same time as federal agents are continuing to arrest undocumented migrants across the country. So Atlanta News First Sarah Hammond is live for us from the state capitol. Good morning to you, Sarah. What can you tell us about this?
Good morning. So a White House official says that President Trump is expected to sign the Laken Riley Act into law today. It will be the first piece of legislation that he signs in his new term, and it comes as immigration was a rallying cry throughout his campaign. But this bill requires the Department of Homeland Security to detain undocumented immigrants for certain crimes like theft and burglary, or those resulting in death or serious injury. It also gives legal standing to state attorneys general to sue the federal government for harm caused by federal immigration decisions. Now, most lawmakers who voted for the measure are Republicans, but dozens in the House and Senate are Democrats, including Georgia Senators Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock. And Democratic Senator Ruben Gallego, whose parents are immigrants, co-sponsored the Laken Riley Act.
Americans are very clear. They want more border security, but they also want an opportunity for sane immigration reform that stabilizes and fixes our broken immigration system.
Criminal networks that have brought devastating crime to American soil, we're getting them all out.
Now, many Democrats in the House and Senate who voted against the Laken Riley Act argue that it strips away due process rights for immigrants. They also say that the bill does not have any additional funding in it. Live from the state capitol, Sarah Hammond for Atlanta News First.
Meanwhile, Atlanta immigration officials are not mincing words about their objection to the ICE raids that President Trump ordered.
The administration can't be trusted to tell us the truth. They have lied into what they're doing right now. Being in this country is not a criminal violation, it is a civil violation, and there is a distinction in front of the law.
So that is Latino advocacy organizer Jerry Gonzalez, and he says that ICE is still conducting arrest efforts in Georgia and is aware of arrestees who do not have a criminal history. A spokesperson for the Department of Homeland Security did not respond to our questions about how many people in Georgia have been arrested, but local advocates are expected to appeal to state lawmakers on February 5th right here at our state capitol. So facilities at Buckley Space Force Base in Colorado will be used for ICE to process migrants. This is the first military base to be used as a processing center as President Trump ramps up detentions of undocumented migrants. There were pre-dawn raids in New York City on Tuesday, and those were overseen by the newly confirmed Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem.